Om Shri Sai Ram. We will begin today's session with three Omkars. Om. Om. Om.
Om Shri Sai Ram, offering our most humble and reverential pranams at the divine lotus feet of our most beloved Bhagwan. Respected elders and my dear brothers and sisters, it is an honor to have today once again Dr. Sunder Iyer with all of us. For all, I would just like to repeat the introduction of Dr. Sunder Iyer. Dr. Sunder Iyer is an alumnus of the Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning. He was in the first batch of students to join Swami's College at Puttaparthi in the year 1979. He completed his graduation, post-graduation, and subsequently earned his PhD degree in banking and finance. He then continued to teach at Swami's University until 1994. As with all of Swami's students during his time, Brother Sunder Iyer had innumerable occasions of being close to Swami and learning from his direct divine presence. He had the privilege of being a personal attendant of Swami for a short period during his student days. During these months of close encounters, Brother Sunder Iyer not only witnessed Swami in his day-to-day life, but also was privileged to be personally guided by Bhagwan. Later, in the year 1992, Swami was gracious enough to personally perform the wedding of Brother Sunder Iyer with Srimati Maya in Prashanti Nilayam. Brother Sunder Iyer's passion is practicing and teaching yoga, and he was the only student who received a gold medal for yoga from the direct divine hands during the 1984 convocation of the Sri Sathya Sai University. Everything he learnt about this wonderful science, he dedicates the same to Bhagwan and from the masters who would visit ashram of Bhagwan. His passion was for spreading the message of Sai through yoga and meditation has taken him around the world, conducting yoga and meditation camps. At the age of 50, Brother Sunder Iyer took an early retirement from an IT career. He has now dedicated his life for spreading the message of traditional yoga through the principles of Sanatana Dharma. This is his life's mission. In 2013, Brother Sunder Iyer was ordained as an ecumeral minister by the Ecumeral Ministry of the Unity of All Religions in Ojal, California. Dr. Sunder Iyer and Srimati Maya Iyer have currently set up Kaivalya Yoga Gurukulam, an international center for yoga, Vedanta, and human advancement. This is a non-profit charitable organization run under the auspices of KYG USA Incorporations. I would now request Sri Sunder Iyer to share his thoughts with us.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you, brother, for that very kind and warm introduction. Thank you. Namaste and Sairam to each and every one of the participants who have joined the Satsang. Before I begin, as is customary, and I always do this from the depths of my heart, I offer my most grateful pranams at the feet of my beloved Sadguru, Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Without him, none of this would be possible. I wouldn't be sitting here and talking to you. You and I wouldn't be in the Satsang. So let us all offer a grateful gratitude to Bhagavan for making this possible. I think of what it would have been sometimes, occasionally, if Swami was not in our lives. What would have happened, right? The life, of course, it's only the ifs and it's only an imagination at this point, but family, there's that. Not that anything is bad, none of these are bad, but I'm just saying that it's just a drift, right? We all are drifting because everybody does it, we do it, and then we keep drifting along, and one day we just disappear. Not knowing where we came from, not knowing where we are going, what our mission in life is, what our purpose in life is, and what is all this living and life and consciousness all about. But then comes this divine teacher in our lives. This was the divine teacher who came in my life at the right moment, at the right time. When I was seeking secular education, he opened the doors where, along with secular education, he opened the door to spiritual awareness, spiritual education. So my heart is eternally grateful to such a divine teacher. And there is not been a moment of regret in my life where I wished I spent those 15 odd years of my youth somewhere else, perhaps watching TV or dating or doing whatever it is that kids do these days. Not for a moment. I am so grateful that I got a chance to go within and make that journey from discovering Sai, discovering Swami, accepting Swami, and then from Swami going inside and discovering the Sai within, who is very much alive even to this day, guiding every thought, every feeling. And so my heart is always filled with gratitude. I never get tired of saying that. Last time when I was with the Mumbai crowd, Amchi Mati, Amchi Mansa, I think I spoke about how I came to Baba. That was quite a while ago. I've done plenty of uh, programs in between, so pardon me if I'm not exactly going to link with the previous session, but I have a general idea of what I spoke about. I spoke about how I came to Baba, and in my very first interview at the end of 1.5 years of my initial stay with there, that was my first time I actually got a close encounter, if you will, close encounter with Swami. Until then, I was part of 50, 60, 80 boys initially, and that just kept on growing to today what it is. Like thousands of students, right from kindergarten to PhD, MBA, and so on. So I will kind of lead my thoughts into how I began to accept Baba as my guru. How I began to understand that, oh my God, I am in the presence of a very divine energy. If you remember or if you recall, I did mention, and I want to make it clear, I did not come from a Sai devotee family. I had no background of who Sai Baba was, what he stood for. At the time I was joining his college, I was aware enough to know that he was a man of miracles. And there was a lot of stories around him that he's able to do this, he's able to appear in 2 places at once, and you know how they, all of these stories, and it was quite overwhelming. And frankly, for me, it was like, I can't take this. My mind couldn't even digest that. I said, okay, we will think about that as and when it comes. Right now, I'm in this, as I mentioned last time, I think it was Shole Gaon. I'm in this Gaon, this village atmosphere in Puttaparthi, far away from my family. Nobody to tell me study, 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 and look at this guy, look at that boy, and be like him, be like her. I was free. So that was that freedom I was really capitalizing on, if you will. And that is what for me, that was my greatest joy of being in Puttaparthi, that initially. I had to be honest here because we are in the presence of the divine when we do these satsangs. So my awareness of Baba was from the books I had read or I was reading at that point, just to understand what is this? Where am I in this place? What attracted to me, Swami, was the openness in his teachings, the simplicity in his teachings, the practicality of his teachings. I loved the love is God principle. I loved, especially even to this day, one of my favorite quotes is, there is only one religion, the religion of love. There is only one caste, the caste of humanity. There is only one language, the language of the heart. There is only one God, and He is omnipresent. So those were the things that attracted me most. I said he was not like the regular gurus who would talk about only Hinduism versus this or that. He just talked about love, just love, be selfless, go out and serve. And so to me, those are the things that really attracted me to him uh, in a spiritual sense. But when I would meet my fellow students, most of them were from Sai devotee families. And initially, as part of the, there was, as part of the admission in the university, there wasn't any formal entrance exam, but there was this general thing that there will be a short interview with Principal Sastri, who was at that time. And he would just generally ask your background and make sure you're from a Sai family. I guess that was an added bonus if you were, because they didn't want really like hooligans coming into this Puttaparthi college initially and creating havoc there, right? So they wanted to make sure that at least some semblance of decency should be there in these boys when they come. So we are not dealing with completely very difficult to handle kind of situations. So somehow, the story is there. I shared with you how I joined Swami's college. But even though I was not part of Sai family, I think the fact that Swami spoke to me and did this ishara to the principal, this sign, if you will, he opened that door and I got in. So I was surrounded by students, fellow students, who were all from Sai families. Their parents were in the Sai organizations, or their grandparents had known Swami from their childhood. So it was fascinating to listen to their experiences as well. And they were my age, so we could talk like friends. And I could tell them, hey, this is so difficult to believe. Yeah, what is this? I mean, how did it really happen? And then my friend would say, I don't know, this is what my grandfather has told me, this is what happened when he was with Swami. And so we would exchange these ideas, these experiences, and I was completely surrounded by devotees. That is how the ashram life is, right? The environment is so filled with Sai energy, and I really kind of felt I was the fish out of water. There were perhaps others too, but I can only speak for myself. And so I felt like fish out of water. What I was searching for is a one-on-one connection with Sai, a one-on-one connection. And I wanted to understand, where is this guru for me? And that is what happened 1.5 years later. One thing led to the other. And I was in the interview room. And apart from Swami asking me, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And I talked about my sister. And I think I shared that incident. But anyway, I want to focus on the other part of it, how I came to accept Swami. So there was one incident I mentioned about the first time he said, Kya mangta hai tumko, kya mangta hai? In the very first interview, right? I'm alone with him. I'm shivering. I'm so nervous. Because you have seen Swami in groups and giving darshan. 1.5 years I've stayed in ashram, right? So Baba's darshans were there every day. But alone, one-on-one was like very, very nerve-wracking for me the first time. I always remember that. So when you're alone in that room, little room, and he's saying, Kya mangta hai? Bolo, kya mangta hai? What do you want? Hindi, Tamil, English, he's asking me in all these languages. And I said, my sister. And that's when he explained about my sister, the whole thing, and said she's praying for a baby and this and that, and he gave prasad. And that was one side of the story, right? Where I had the first-hand experience of his omnipotence, omnipresence and omnipotence. Oh, well, sorry, omniscience and omnipotence. Omniscience is the fact that he knew it just like that. I mean, I had not written letters to Swami about my sister. And even if my parents had written letters, there are thousands of letters that come. How would he connect that letter to my situation, right? So this is all my logic mind just blew out there. He blew all that logicality, if you will, the analysis part of the mind out of proportion, and he proved his omniscience. And it wasn't done in a dramatic way. It was a very natural, simply a conversation. Yeah, I know about your sister. This is what happened. This is what your mother is doing. This is what they all did. Okay, I'll give prasad. All that will be taken care of. Right, chalo. That is in your back of your mind. I'll take care of that. Okay. Now, what about you? What do you want? That was the approach of Swami. It was like almost chalo. That is bothering you. Okay, I'll take care of that. Right. It was just a sheer act of grace and kindness, not in any dramatic way. That these are things I'm sharing because this is how. I guess true divinity works. And that simplicity was his divinity. And that's what I want to explain in the course of this presentation. I have to keep a track of time and I don't have a wristwatch. But pardon me if I look here, there is a clock here. I'll keep a track of time. Otherwise, this will become an Akanda satsang. And so then after my sister's thing happened, then he looked at me. Of course, he gave prasad and all of that. And my sister did have a boy. All of that was there. And I think she had that incident, but nevertheless. So, thank you. And so he turned to me and he says, what about you? Tumko kya mangta hai? What do you want? What do you want? And it came to that point where I had to say something because he wasn't letting me go. And I said, I want to be in your room, Baba. I want to be in your room. Acha, room upstairs? Yes, I said. And he said, okay, theek hai, kal se aao, come from tomorrow. It was so simple. Again, it wasn't like, you want to be in my room. Let me think. Oh, no, you deserve that. Or you have to wait. It was spontaneous as he was waiting for me to ask that question. Spontaneously, acha, okay, come from tomorrow. Right away. Almost to the point that I couldn't believe my ears, but I was so happy at that moment that he actually agreed. That I said, oh, thank you, Swami, and I hugged him. And he said, hey, you're spoiling my hair. And he pushed me away. Saying, hey, tunna pota, you're spoiling my hair. So that was a hilarious moment. But I was too excited. Now, why did I ask that thing? Right? Why? I could have asked for so many things when there is Baba standing in front of you and saying, what do you want? Tell me, what do you want? I could have asked for so many things. Why did I ask for this? The reason why this came out from the depths of my heart is not out of audacity, not out of curiosity, but it was a sincere seeking a one-on-one connection with Baba. This is what, like I said, when I heard all these stories of the 1.5 years that I stayed there, I would go to the villages and then the oldies, if you will, the oldies of the villages, they would tell me stories of Baba's childhood, the old ladies there near the village mandir. So, and then you come to the hostel, there are these boys, your friends, your classmates who have stories upon stories of their families. And Swami's young days and Swami's olden days and the old Prashanti and the new Prashanti and all of that. And so all of those stories created a great deal of curiosity in me. I said, I want to understand this Baba fully. I want to know him fully. I want to have a complete one-on-one relation with him. I want to be able to accept him as my guru. You see, the reason I'm saying this is it's very important for us. Allow me to share this. I'm not trying to advise you, but allowing me to share my thoughts here. Pause here for a second, because if my stories don't leave lessons for you to take home, then it's just a story that will be forgotten. But I think the lesson for me that I learned, and the lesson that I share with people at this point here, that it is very important for us to have a direct one-on-one connection with our guru, whoever that guru is. Okay, whether he's physically alive or not, whether it is a guru that existed 400 years ago, whether it is Dattatreya as a guru, whether it's Dakshinamurti as a guru, whether it's Shiva as a guru, or Hanuman as a guru, whether it's Ram as a guru, or whether it's a guru in your lineage, in your family who existed maybe 50 years ago, 100 years ago, or a guru is alive. I think it is very important for us to know and have that one-on-one connection. In spirituality, to me, that is the key, right? It's called the aparoksha anubhuti. The experience in spirituality has to be aparoksha. Paroksha is borrowed. Paroksha is like in satsangs. This is paroksha. It's not bad. Paroksha is what happens in satsangs, where we listen to others' experiences, we get inspired, we get motivated, our faith gets strengthened. We call it battery charging, if you will. Though I'm not a big fan of calling faith as a battery which gets decharged. But anyway, but we call that, right? We say, okay, let's talk about it. And all this is paroksha anubhuti. You're experiencing something right now. I'm experiencing something right now that is borrowed from this energy that we have created in this virtual space. We feel a sense of elation. We feel a sense of focused attention and listening, and that lifts our mind from our regular burdensome life, if you will, or regular routine that we have got so used to it. It gives us a different flavor, right? That experience is borrowed. Paroksha. We read a book, somebody's experience, he has written it in the form of a book. So we borrow that experience and our faith gets strengthened, our belief gets strengthened. We begin to take that path, explore that path, because we're convinced about somebody. So all that is very good. The words matter, words of somebody else, a friend, from a satsang that we get, the thoughts that we entertain, or all paroksha anubhuti. But what really begins to open doors in our own spiritual life, in your own spiritual life, what will open the door for you will be when you look towards aparoksha anubhuti, aparoksha, which means from that, I begin to explore what is my experience, what am I learning from it, what is my belief system, how am I able to relate to this. And it is okay to look into those ghosts hidden in the closet there. And it is okay if you see only doubts there and no faith. It is okay, perfectly okay. I'm telling you because I've been there, done that. Okay? No, there was no God waiting there and no Baba waiting there, especially our beloved Swami waiting there to say, oh my God, you're doubting me. So there you go, punishment for you. How dare you doubt the Guru? It wasn't like that at all. So it is okay for you to explore that closet filled with doubts and anguish and despair and lack of hope. It's okay, but face the ghosts in your closet. Because the moment we close that and say, no, I don't want to think of that. I just want to believe. And live on borrowed belief. And here I'm using the word belief and not faith, because faith to me is aparoksha. Belief is paroksha. This is how I interpret it. Okay, I don't want to get into any intellectual debates on that. For me, faith is a matter of your own personal experience. That can never go down. That batteries can never get discharged. It's a permanent connected to the electricity. And in Mumbai, you don't have power cuts. So that's eternally, the flow of energy continues. Belief, on the other hand, is paroksha. You borrow, you listen. You listen to someone who talks against the principle, then you get doubts. You talk to somebody who is for the principles of whatever you want to believe, then your belief is strengthened, belief weakens. So belief is paroksha, faith is aparoksha. So for me, I wanted aparoksha anubhuti. Aparoksha. I wanted my experiences. But what is my belief in Baba? And I found when I looked there, I had only questions. What does he eat? What does he do? How does he live up there? Does he have a TV in his room? If he's talking so many things, if he's God, how does God live alone? If that's an avatar, then what does an avatar do? I've heard of Rama and Krishna, and those things were so far out in the past that I couldn't even relate to them, right? Or Jesus, who was the closest among all the avatars 2000 years ago, or Buddha 2000 years ago. So those are all much recent, relatively recent compared to Rama, Krishna, and of course you go as far back, then you're looking at the Puranas. Okay, those are considered Puranas because they are so old. Even in the olden days, they were considered old. So anyway, so we call them mythology to be on the safe side, but they are Puranas. Anyway, so those things are all, to me at that point, things I couldn't connect to. But here is somebody whom I have a chance to explore, understand. And if that is, if I tune into his lifestyle, if I know what he is doing inside out, then I can accept him one time. To me, that was very important. And so what I would do is I would ask those boys who would go in and out of Baba's room, or people, let's say, what does Baba do now between darshan time? What does he do in the morning? What time does he get up? What time does he go to sleep? How's his bedroom? They'll say, no, no, oh, okay. It'll be like they wouldn't want to share for whatever reason is. I think the job was not to do that at that point. And so for me, that intrigued me further. I said, I want to know more. Why are the people not sharing it? And so one of the reasons why I share this is because I want to help people who have these questions in their minds and in their hearts, because I was there. And to me, it's very important that when you listen to somebody says, listen, this is my first hand experience, it helps you, even though to some extent that is paroksha. But at least you get to say, all right, I trust this guy because there's no way for me to get that information. So I trust him and I will go with what he says. And so you quell that doubting mind there. You quell that mind which has questions there, you quell it and say, okay, this is done. So it was with that intention, there was this burning desire in my heart as to, I really want to go in and see what is going on in Baba's room. I had seen this big mandir, right? You see the mandir. Those days you didn't have the not Purna Chandra Hall, the Kulwant Hall and all of that. It was just open sands and just this divine mandir standing right in the center. I would literally stand under the archway that was there and spend nights simply sitting there and meditating and thinking, show me a way, show me a way. If you are my guru, I would spend hours doing that. I'm not saying this to show up, but that was my true yearning. I wouldn't sleep at nights. Whether it was rain or whatever, I would just sit there and say, show me a sign, show me a sign. And there were a lot of spiritual signs, but then my mind would say, oh, these are all just vague, abstract signs. I wanted direct proof. I wanted that interaction with the physical body of Satya Sai Baba to begin my journey in spirituality. For me, that was like a big roadblock. It may not be for anyone. I have met devotees. I have met students who say, I don't know what you're talking about, because the moment I saw him, I knew. It just clicked in my heart that he was God on earth. And I bowed to such people with great humility. I wasn't there. I wasn't like that. So I think each of us have our own path and a reason to be in that path and approach. And every single path and every single experience, every single approach to divine is unique and wonderful. So when Baba cornered me that day and asked me, what do you want? What do you want? Because I was in that spotlight in front of Baba, and I had not prepared for that question. I had no time to prepare. It was just shot, given to me directly at that moment, and I have to answer. And so I said, I want to be in your room. Because that was my inner desire. It just came. And I'm so glad that Goddess Saraswati, if you will, sat on the tip of my tongue and said, speak this. I am so glad, because the moment he agreed, I knew that is it. That's what I want. So the next day morning, I went at 5 o'clock because he said, come in the morning. And so I got up early, and Omkar time I went, had a shower, this, that, whatever. And as soon as all that is over, I think about 5:45, 6, as the Nagar Sankirtan got over, I went and stood in front of Baba's interview room door. So an elderly gentleman came out. He said, Sai Ram, what are you doing here? I said, I want to go in. Baba has called me. He just looked in disbelief and walked away. And then my warden came out. And he said, what are you doing at this point? Because they go first thing in the morning, early in the morning, and they get instructions, and they get the plan for the day, if you will. If there are any instructions that Baba wants to give them, then he will do that right at that first thing in the morning. And so he looked at me and said, what are you doing? The warden of the hostel, right? The dorm. So I said, yesterday I had the interview, and Baba said, I can come here. He said, what do you mean come? He said, I can be in this room duty, as they call it. door duty, room duty. This is what it was called. There were 3 or 4 boys, 3 boys at that time, or maybe 4, and I was the 5th one or the 4th one. I don't know, recall it. But anyway, so door duty. He said I can come in for door duty. He said, but Swami didn't tell me anything about that. I said, I don't know. Can you please check with him? He said, oh, okay. Are you sure? Because he doesn't want to get into trouble, right? But he knows that I am not one of those who will just cook up something. So I said, yeah, he told me I can come tomorrow morning. Can you please check with Swami? He said, okay. So he went back again and he came out. And I was very nervous. He said, my God, what is going to happen? But anyway, he came out and he said, yeah, Swami's called you upstairs. Go. You can imagine my feelings at that point. And even as I speak now, my mind is in that at that moment when I entered. I'm like, this is not an interview call. This is just opening the door and walking into his first interview room door, which I'd seen the day before. But then now it's that mystical staircase going up into his room. I was so nervous, so excited. Words fail me when I describe that moment. So I went up. It's a winding staircase, extremely narrow. It's barely 18 inches. In these train compartments, you have these, you have the 2-seaters on the side, and you have these long seats on the side. Right? In every train, when you have these long journeys made, and then you have that space in between. I believe it's about 18 inches, 1.5 feet. This is was just that narrow, the winding staircase. And later on, I always just think, my God, I hope Swami doesn't trip because his robes are so flowing. He has to be so careful coming down. And those steps are curved, and it's very, very soft and smooth. So you slip, you will really have a nasty fall. The reason I'm saying is because I've slipped, I've fallen down. It's such a narrow, and it's winding. It's beautiful. Very symbolic to me as I understand yoga later on. At that moment, of course, I didn't think of all this, but I'm just explaining to you, describing to you that it's a little winding staircase, solid stone. Of course, there's a wall on this side, and again a concrete. Everything is concrete there, solid concrete and stone walls. One of the things Baba said was thousands of years. Two things will last for more than 1,000 years in Puttaparthi. One is the mandir, and the other one is the Ishwaramba High School. Both that Ishwaram High School was in symbolic institution of starting education, right? So that was again built in solid stone and stone blocks, if you will. And the mandir again is solid stone, one stone on top of the other. It's a beautiful construction which has lasted for thousands of years. So anyway, so it's symbolic because it's circular. And to me, understanding the spine and the way the nadis and the vayu and the prana moves, the energy moves up the spine as your consciousness evolves, it's actually winding in nature. And so I went up this winding staircase, just a little bit, right? It's because first floor and ground floor, no? So you just went like this, and then there is this door. I went and I peeped in. And Swami was reading something. He looked up. He said, come. And so I gingerly walked in. And he said, pointed to his feet. I knelt and I kissed his feet. I looked up. He said, be very careful. Discipline. Don't talk to anyone. Okay? So there was no, look at it. You wanted to come. I've opened the door. Now come, chalo, explore, exploit me. No such thing. It was suddenly like this is my house, so now no more. I've given you what you want. So right away, the master got cracking with me. He looked at me and said, hey, be very disciplined. No unnecessary talk. Chup karo. Be quiet. Go down. No explanation of what to do, what not to do. No such thing. Go. So I touched his feet and I came back. And as I entered upstairs, my eyes, the periphery of my eyes, I kind of had an idea of what the room looked like. But of course, I got a better look later on when I started cleaning the room and all of that. My first impression was, oh my God, this is where he sits. This is his living room. And I was very surprised, very um, in a good way, because it was just as big as the interview room downstairs. For those of you who have seen the interview room downstairs, and in that interview room, as they call it, where he would meet with groups of people, is not really very big. It's about perhaps 12 feet by 13 feet, I would think, something like that, with one chair in a corner. Upstairs is exactly replica. These are all built in the 60s, no? So you don't think of any fancy things, and they are solid stone walls. So they weren't really doing any fancy architecture there. It was simple, straightforward. So the room upstairs is exactly like the one downstairs. Again, the living room, as you call it, it had 10 feet by 12 feet. Now, what are the contents of that living room? How many chairs, how many sofas were there? One chair. One single chair. The chair I'm sitting on, and I purposely chose this. This is far more comfortable than the chair Baba was sitting on. Straight back, straight arms, a simple sofa, if you will, a simple soft seat. I don't know if you call that sofa, because when you say sofa, it means a three-seater, right? So this is just a single chair. Let's call it a chair. Not a chair like a dining chair, but it is like a low back rest, and there's no place for him to even rest his head. So that's why I said a low back rest. If he has to rest his head, he has to go all the way back like this, okay, which he rarely did, but he did do that on days when he would feel tired, I think, or he would just go into that zone where he just wanted to be himself. And I'll perhaps share that story if time permits. One single chair, that's it, okay? And next to him, there is one little a trash can, an open plastic trash can. Was this I'm talking of in 1980, 81. So there's a little trash can where he would read his letters and then tear it and throw it, okay? And then on this side, there is a small table, which is again 3 feet by 3 feet, maybe, like a side table, which has trays, which had three layers in them. They had envelopes, bigger envelopes, bottom, and smaller envelopes. So they had organized. That is what we would do on an everyday when we receive mails that will come in a sack. Even in those days, there was a sack this big, but now it became only bigger and bigger, right? And it became many sacks of mail that would come, and we would sort them out and not open them, put them, sort it out and take it to Baba. Those days it was where they could all fit into three trays, but it just became more and more as days went by, I guess, but not in those few months that I spent with Baba there. So there was that table and chair. Rest of the room, empty. There's some boxes here and there which devotees would have sent, and he said, all right, leave it there, I'll have to open it and see what it is. So right across him in the wall, there were these places for these people, the VIPs, if you will, the ashram heads of the ashram, the warden of this hostel, the vice chancellor would go up, and registrar would go up to talk to him. They would all be standing. Some of them would sit on the floor if Swami would say, okay, sit down. Okay. There were exceptions with Colonel Jogarao, who was really big in his in a physical sense. He would ask one of us to get a folding chair so that he could sit. But the Vedic priest like Sri Kamavadani Garu, I mean, he was an amazing Vedic scholar who had known Rig Veda inside out. He was an embodiment of Rig Veda itself. So he would always sit at Swami's feet. Always sit at Swami's feet. Always choose the left side of Swami's feet and massage, and that is it. That was his job. He would always sit down. So everybody would sit down or stand. Sitting down also only if Swami tells. Otherwise, they will be standing. One ceiling fan, and then 200-watt bulbs. You know, the yellow incandescent lights, as they call them now. So hanging from a wall kind of decor that was there with two of these things. So there were two incandescent bulbs, 100-watt bulbs. And that's it. Behind Baba was a window that you can see. If you see the mandir, you could see upstairs, you'll see window pane just like bottom and top. So it is exactly the same. So these windows have wooden panels. All of them were closed except one or two on top. And they had thick mosquito net um, coverings, if you will. They're not mosquito net, they're not curtains, but they how you nail them to the window frame to prevent insects. Um, a mesh, okay. So there was barely any light in the room throughout the day. So the light was always on, and that was his living room. So when I came back, I was like, wow. My first question was how he was in his living room. I got an idea. To me, it mattered. I wanted to get the picture of what is this Sai Baba, what is his life, and then his teachings and everything fell in place for me. It was like that. That's how I am. And so I'm just telling you exactly what it is. It's very important for us to know that the simplicity that Baba talked about when he said simple life, when he talked about less luggage makes more comfort in your life, simple living, high thinking, he actually lived that day after day. Now, I know many of you, when you see pictures even to this day, you see him walking like a king. You see him sitting on these thrones. You see him, five people following him. And if he drops a handkerchief, they dive to pick it up. He's barely allowed to. That is the external, the beauty that people wanted to give to him, not that he demanded in any way. Okay. He is the one who will roll up his sleeve and get down to brass tacks if required. We've all seen that, and I think many of my alumni friends and brothers who are part of this during my times at least, and much later as well, will vouch for that. Where for example, during Narayan Seva, when we are serving the poor, you see in those pictures where Baba will be going around and blessing people. But there are very few videos where he will actually roll up the sleeves. He'll say, give me, give me. He wants to do it. Okay. So in one birthday, for example, he went on serving till he was sweating in his back, under his armpits, because he's wearing a silk robe out in the open in the stadium. And he was wiping his sweat, but he was so engrossed in the fact that he was giving, right? This is not for cameras and all. He's enjoying himself. So he say, "Ha, inka teesko bangar, teeskondi," and he'll be serving the food, and we will like tell Swami, hey, undra, and he will just go on like, don't disturb me, right? Go get another bucket. So we will just be holding the buckets and following him. He'll be serving. So this is who he was. Okay, he was a man of action. He was a man of let's get down to business. He would always want to be involved in everything, not sit there and give orders and sit back and expect the people to carry on. So this is the Swami I saw. And so that is the part we may not see. Many of you may not have seen, may not see anymore. And those things are not necessarily on video and in the YouTube videos that you see now. But the Swami that I saw was a simple, austere, penance-like lifestyle. That was the lifestyle. If somebody asked me, describe the lifestyle of Sai Baba, I would say simple, austere, and penance-like. You know, in Hanuman Chalisa, we do that every night. We have a satsang, and tonight is actually the 108th day. We'll be ending the Chalisa tonight. And as part of the online offering we are doing, many of you know it and are aware of it and are part of it. There is a statement there in the Chalisa. It says, "Sab par Ram tapasvi Raja." Ram is the king of austerities. Like, who can be as austere as Ram, right? And Sai Ram was no less. Now you might say, what is so austere about one single sofa in a room? That is his living room, right? Let's go to the bedroom. That bedroom was almost half the size of this living room. Half the size. It just maybe 10 feet by 6 feet or 10 feet by 10 feet, something like that. I'm not very, very, very tiny. If you have a study room in your home, or you have a small little puja room, somewhere around that much, some of us have bathrooms much bigger than that, right? And That was the size of his bedroom. Most of it was occupied by one single bed. And that bed, when I saw it in the 80s, was somebody had gifted him that bed. I believe this was I was told on his 50th birthday they gave him, because they visualized him as Narayana, so they gave him an oval shaped bed, which is actually Adi Shesha and the hooded serpent. That was the bed. You might see some picture of him in that kind of bed, but that is a bed he chose to be in. It's an oval bed, very tiny. It's good to pose for photographs, but when you actually sleep and turn on one side, your foot goes off the bed, right? That I don't know. I felt, wow, this is what he sleeps on. Later on, and I saw that. Luckily, the Adi Shesha was removed, because that would have been really too big in that room. Um, so there was one simple bed and one cupboard which has just his clothes. So imagine you and I, we open our wardrobe and say, what do I wear? Right? I have this Kaivalya Marga classes that I do online. I do yoga, and I have a wardrobe. I open it, and Maya says, "Today, last time you wore red t-shirt. Now you wore. Don't go on wearing red. Wear this green." Or she picks up and gives me. She has a color choice she can make, and she decides what kurta I should wear for satsang, what t-shirt I should wear for yoga, and all of that. Imagine Sai Baba. He opens his door and what color should I wear today? Orange or orange. That was his wardrobe. Maybe you would say maybe lighter orange, maybe darker orange, maybe a little red. How about that? It was only once a year that he chose to wear white, right? Then he was very shy. He would blush when he wore those whites for the convocation, signifying purity and all of that, the beauty of that. Um, and he wore, then it became purple and so on. That's all once a year thing, right? On an everyday basis, wardrobe is just orange. His bathroom was barely 3 feet by 4 feet. A dingy little, sorry to say that, but this is exactly what it was. There was no exhaust fan. There was no windows there. There was no light other than one single light there. It is just cemented floor, no tiles at that point when I saw. And later on, they insisted Swami put some tiles, and so he doesn't slip, because he did slip there as well during the early 80s also. He did slip. Um, Very small, tiny bathroom with a place where he would hang his toothbrush and a soap, and his towel would be the thinnest towel possible. In Tamil or in Telugu, we used to call it Tortamundu, or maybe it's in Malayalam. I don't know. I just learned it in my language. It's one of those really thin towels, because Swami would say this absorbs water. I like it. I can squeeze it and it'll dry fast, and it absorbs water. I don't like the Turkish towels. Those don't absorb water. So he would not use that. Simplicity, thy name is Sai. And all of this I discovered as I stayed, not in the very first day. I didn't go exploring the house. We never got that kind of freedom to do that. But as we stayed, we begin, Swami will say, go clean the bathroom, or we'll get a chance to see what the bathroom looks like, what the bedroom looks like. And the months that I followed, I saw all of this. The beauty there was, this is why I call austerity. Austerity is, you and I can do this when we go and say, let's take a retreat, and we go and spend a time in the retreat, like in Lonavala, like you're in Bombay, right? So we talk of Lonavala retreat. We go and live in simple cottages, and we live in nature, and we take fresh breath of fresh air, and we say, this is spirituality. But after 2 days, 3 days, we miss our TV shows and miss our regular, and we say, okay, I have to get back, kya kare, work and all of that. So we have this drama and coming back. We like variety. We like colors. We like light. We like to go out. We like airy space and all of that. But the one who lived, who taught us love, joy, happiness, equanimity, surrender, devotion, who had always had the light in his face, always was out to give. What was his lifestyle like? This is why, for me, that was my turning point. Not in one day, but that period. That was my turning point, where I was like, oh my gosh, how does he do this every day? This is his home. That was his home. He steps out, there are devotees clamoring for, give me this, Baba, give me blessings, write home for my child, cut my hair, and do this and do that. You know how we have a laundry list. When we find one Baba, one God, we just go after him saying, give me this, give me this. We want to always get something, right? So he comes out, he does all of that. And then he sits in the bhajan hall again, Daya karo, Kripa karo, Baba, Baba. We cry and we ask and we ask. He's waving, swaying, accepts all that. Interview room door. Interview room is what? Counseling, right? And then he goes back. Does he retreat from all of this to a zone where he says, Chalo yaar, ho gaya. Now let me just relax, watch some TV, cool myself down. I need a change. I need a break, right? No. He goes into an even more intense zone, if you will, his home. Even more intense, even more secluded. It's almost like punishment. Why? Because there's stone walls, not huge picturesque, okay, picturesque windows. Not that he would look out and see landscapes and mountains to inspire him into his mission. No. Think about that for a moment. Because I know I have met people who say, "Arey baap re, he has got Mercedes car. Aise car hota to koi bhi bhagwan ho jata hai," and all of that. No. You're missing the whole point if you're not got that picture. There was such austerity and simplicity in this avatar's life. Why? Because he would say, the monies that people are giving are for humanity, for others, not for me, to buy my clothes and buy a chair. So he would get very angry if somebody would say, Swami, can we get a new chair for you? Or can we make something more comfortable? Can we put an air conditioner in your bedroom? Or can we do that? Can we do that? You will get very angry. I know this because I was privy to this conversation when they wanted to put tiles in his bathroom. Because he had slipped and fallen once. And so they said, Swami, please, I wasn't sitting right there, but I was standing outside the door listening to it. And Swami was very angry. He said, where is the money coming from? You think people are giving money to put tiles in the bathroom? How dare you talk like this? No, I don't want anything. And he called us and he said, you guys are not cleaning properly. That is why Swami slipped. Go clean it. You're just eating and sleeping. So I call this idiosyncrasies of a master. This was this master, this divine teacher, who refused. Trust me when I say this. I can't be more honest and down to earth than this. Who refused luxury, not because he wanted to punish himself, but I don't know why. I honestly don't know why he would do that. Why couldn't he be more comfortable, right? But in that austerity, he didn't lose track of his divinity. He didn't come out being more irritating or more impatient, or you don't know how I'm living upstairs. You don't know how troublesome it is. And on top of that, you're like giving me only problems of what you have to do with your life. I have to solve your problems on top of this. No such things. So my question as a young boy watching this, and of course we were cleaning room and doing all this, right? So my question watching Baba was, how does he do this? How does he live in these four walls of just stone walls? How does he go into his bedroom and spend the night in complete darkness? You need light everywhere in the house throughout the day and night, of course. How could you do that? How could he live this day in and day out? And yet there was no sign of tiredness in his face, right? You and I think of, we need vitamin D, we need sunlight, we need fresh air, we need all of that. Here is one teacher who was deprived of all of that. All of that. So the mandir looks big. His living quarters is one side. On top of, when you look at the mandir, on the right side top was his living quarters. One living room, one small bedroom. People in Mumbai can appreciate it. Sorry, I have got something in my nose. Sorry. Anyway, people in Mumbai can appreciate this. I know I can appreciate it because we were raised in small little apartments, if you will. And there was nothing to be ashamed or nothing to be ashamed there, actually, because the avatar himself chose to live like that. So I feel proud in saying, yeah, we had a very tiny room. that the greatest works done by the greatest masters, if you go into their personal life, they had very little for themselves, very little for themselves. And I think that is the secret of their greatness. The simplicity of their life was a hallmark of their divinity. Rest, all of that miracles and all of that, to me, is those are things which we have to spend lifetimes to understand, right? So I don't even go into that, because that is all personal. You have your own experiences, I have my own experiences, and we can't do paroksha anubhuti there. It has to be aparoksha. You have to examine experiences, omniscience, omnipresence on your personal level. Stories we can share and all of, but that's one side of the picture that is open to all of us to experience. Because when you talk about omniscience, omnipotence, and there is nothing only one person can experience. Everybody has a right, everybody has a chance to experience that. But this part, this physical part, this where the physical body lived, where how he conducted his life. So this is one side of the picture. So on top is a living quarters. What about the other side? When you look at the mandir, the other side, there are two sides to it. Below is the bhajan hall. On top there is an open veranda right on top of the bhajan hall, because the bhajan hall ceiling goes right to the top. So there's a little veranda in front where you would come out for darshans. And what about the other side? The other side was completely storerooms, just storerooms. Because devotees will donate boxes and boxes and boxes of old clothes and this and that. The vocational training institute, which was in the ashram there, they would produce vibhuti to be distributed. All those boxes, Baba would say, keep it in the mandir, and then from there let it go. It was like the place at that point. Everything, it became, that was a go down, if you will. So we, as a Baba would say, go there and check, get this box, or look for it here and look for it then. We'll go searching for those boxes and rearrange them, clean them. He will come once in a while to help us clean and arrange. So that side was like a go down, just storage boxes, right? Right from old clothes to vibhuti baskets to whatever people would give, keyboards, instruments. Somebody said, oh, there was a lot of Nike shoes from Baba's house. Yeah, of course, people donated. He'll say, keep it there. Everything was in Baba's mandir. See that? I think there's a beauty there, right? Just take a moment to understand. If you gave a gift to your dad or your mom, or your child comes and gives a gift to you, whatever that gift is, you'll say, okay, keep it. And you will keep it close to you somewhere, just to show them that you love them. And also you really you accept that with love. You don't say, tika, you take that gift, put it away there. That's fine. Let it go into that shed number 33 in the ashram. Let all those, I don't even look at them. Not like that, right? This was love. So he would accept that. He'd say, let it be here. Let it be there. So every box that will come will stay with him, next to him for 2-3 days. Then he will say, okay, put this away in the storeroom. We will come back to it later when we need it to distribute it. Almost there was an acceptance of every single gift that was offered to Baba would be accepted by him, would be in his presence, and then it would leave the ashram for further distribution if that gift meant for distribution. 99.9% was all for distribution. Even people who gave him robes to wear, obviously they won't fit him, so he would give it away. People would give him thousands of handkerchiefs would come. He would always distribute most of them because he had his own, right? So that part of the house was go down. This part, little part, his living quarters was so simple, so austere. I can't even explain this in any better way. This is the first time I've taken so long to actually explain how his living quarters were. That was a living style, right? The one little bed to sleep on, one single sofa to sit on. And when he comes down, he sits on these thrones. None of these thrones are really comfortable, let me tell you that. I sat in one or two when they were in the backstage just to see how does it feel to sit on a throne. As a young boy, I was adventurous, and they are not very comfortable. Okay, it looks nice to see somebody there, but it doesn't really give you that person sitting there is very uncomfortable, I would think, in a physical sense. So he did that also to, okay, you want me to sit on the throne, chalo, I will give whatever it takes for you all to open your mind to spirituality. I'm ready to do. That was his attitude, I think. I can't say what is his attitude. Pardon me if I sound, it's not blasphemy for me. It's my way of perceiving it, my way of taking home. These are the things that inspire me in my life, even to this day. This is why I believe in my heart, and my faith in Baba's mission and his divinity grew watching him living this. I said, no human being can normally do this. Because my question to me as a young boy was, if he's living such an austere life, what is his source of inspiration? For me, that was it. What is driving him to do this? Where does he get his knowledge from? There wasn't any library inside his room. There weren't any books. Those days, of course, there was no internet and also that question was not there. So what is the source of his information? He doesn't take time to meditate. There was no such thing, right? He gets up at 3:30 or 4 in the morning. He spends time in the bathroom. He gets up again. He doesn't put on the lights because he says the discipline in the ashram is no lights should be on till Omkar finishes. So he will use a big flashlight. You know, those watchmen have in India, you see those stainless steel wala ones with the 4 big batteries in, and he will use that flashlight, put it upstairs. I mean, keep it pointing up so it points at the ceiling and the room is lit kind of dimly. He will use that for his morning. He'll say, if I put on the lights, those people from there, because one little window is open, one of those 4 panels in his bedroom is open, just for some semblance of air to come in, right? But he'll say people will see that light there from West Prashanti and they'll think Baba is awake and they'll start seeing to get a glimpse of my hair or something. I don't want to indiscipline in the ashram. So because of that, he'll punish himself. In other words, he'll put a small flashlight and do his early morning chores, which are the most important things for you and me, like having a bath and um, shaving and all of that. Of course, in his bathroom, he can put on the light because there no light escapes. This was his lifestyle. And he would do that, use a hair dryer, get all his hair dried up and all of that, get ready. By 6 o'clock, he's ready. He opens the door, comes out. So he's he's awake much before your Suprabhadam and my Suprabhadam that we chant. He was awake, but he would listen to that, right? He would enjoy that Om chanting, and it's like him there, we know. So he was listening to all of that. So he would come at 6 o'clock, open the door and come. In other, open the door means open the door of his bedroom, come into the living room. That means he's now ready to meet the VIPs, ashram people and all who want to come and meet him. But they can't just walk upstairs. They'll have to send word. And we would go up and tell Swami so and so has come. Can he come inside? Swami will say, wait like this. Or Swami will say, okay, let him come. So always with permission. Everything. People want to meet him will only get permission to come. First of all, they won't even be allowed into the veranda if they are not VIPs. But only the regular ashram people like Kutumbrao Garu, Chiranjeev Garu, and all these secretaries and all of these people would get permission to come. Take permission and go upstairs, including the vice chancellor, including the registrar, because they'll open the door and say, Swami, is Swami available? Could you let him know we have come? We will go and tell Swami so and so. So I would ask myself, where is that motivation coming from? Where does he get this energy, this thing to continue like this? For me, as a young boy, I would think it'll drive me crazy, living like this, day in and day out. How does he do this? And then to me, the way I have understood it, the way I understood those days, I said, he is able to tap a source within himself that is unending in its capacity to give. That was my only answer to this. That source he would go within and tap. That spirituality was his source. That being God, knowing that his true nature is one with the Supreme Being. And all of this is mere limitations, permutations, combinations that we have imposed ourselves, this idea of luxury and the idea of austerity. And all of these are things we have imposed upon ourselves, right? It's all relative. Somebody who sits on a sofa will say, how can you sit on the floor? Yeah, great. Somebody who's sitting on the floor will say, oh my God, how can you sit in the lotus pose? Yeah, great. So it's all relative. But for him, he came from that and he lived in that source. For him, really going back home, I think, was going back to being God. So when Baba would say, among women, I am a woman. Among men, I am a man. Among children, I am a child. Alone, I am God. My dear friends, alone, he was God. Alone in that room, he would just close his eyes occasionally. Because there also his pastime, what is his pastime then? He's reading letters. Letters upon letters upon letters upon letters. That's all his pastime was, to read letters. And guess what you and I wrote in those letters. So I want to end this presentation with this one incident, and I want you all to take home this. One evening, it was when Baba was not talking to anyone. Darshan was the bhajans were over in the evening. It was 7 o'clock. He went, had his light dinner. Again, food is an entirely different thing. He would barely eat half a chapati or one chapati. That's it, with a little pickle or just for the sake of eating something. Anyway, so he had finished his dinner, come upstairs, and the time he takes to eat, incidentally, is by the time you sing the Arati, the Sai Baba Arati, by the time you finish singing, know that Baba has finished his dinner instead. Because you finish bhajan and you go inside, Arati will go on. By the time the Arati is over, he's come out, his dinner is over. Like, that's how it will be. Okay, just to give you an idea, how much can you eat in that? Anyway, so this evening was 7 o'clock. It had finished. He went upstairs, and his evening walk. There will be an evening walk. Poor Swami, he'll do his exercise, walking up and down in that little tiny room. He'll go up and down. Fan will be off, and we will be downstairs. So he will take an evening walk a little bit. We'll hear the swish, swish of the robe as he would go up and down for 10-15 minutes. Then he will settle down, put on the fan, and then we'll know, okay, Swami has finished his evening walk. Just imagine. This was the Sai. For him, even the ability to walk was limited to that little room. Anyway, so he was sitting there one evening, and that evening, one of those rare evenings, he decided not to speak to anyone. He said he didn't want to meet anybody. Okay, he was only reading letters. Two of us were there. We were pressing his feet, and from 7 o'clock till 8:55, almost 9 o'clock, no word was exchanged. Normally, he would say, what is the samachar? Kya kaya? Kya khaya? What was college? How was the classes? No talk. He was completely involved, reading letters. He would tear this letter, put it in the dustbin, pick up another one, open it, read. Occasionally, he just sigh, and close his eyes, go into silence. Then again, come out of that stupor, if you will, again go back to reading. He was completely in his zone, hardly aware of even us there, sitting there. And when his face was behind the letter, so we are sitting down there, right? So we are looking at each other and making isharas, kya ho gaya yaar? Mood kharab hai ki kya hai? That kind of thing is. So, but we will continue pressing his feet, respecting that silence. And it suddenly looked up to the clock after 2 hours, and he realized 9 o'clock is time for him to go to bed. So he looked and he said, he sighed. He was very introvert that evening, like very withdrawn inside. And this, he started talking to himself, just barely aware we were around, right? Talking to us, but more to himself. And this is what he spoke. He said, so many letters today I read. So many letters. Every letter is give me, give me, give me, give me, give me, give me, give. Curriculum, always craving for something. And he went on to explain, somebody wants marriage. Somebody who is married wants peace in marriage. Somebody wants child. Somebody who has children want to know how to take care of their children. Somebody who has a job has problems with the boss. Somebody who doesn't have a job want a job. Always wanting. He paused like that. Intamandi, like in Telugu, he says, Intamandi letter chadivanu, and the curriculum. Idi kavala. This I want, that I want. And then he paused. He said, not one letter was thank you. Not a single letter. That's a thank. Thank you, and you kuda cheppalede. The agony of a teacher. And then he gets up and he walks towards his bedroom, talking to himself. I have come. My plane has landed. I have come to take you all into my plane. I'm standing on the door of my plane saying, come. But everybody's standing there doing projects and doing bhajans and waving aarti. Nobody's coming into my plane. Nobody's coming into my plane. And we are crawling, when Swami is talking and walking towards us, just barely 10 feet, right? He is talking like this, involved and walking towards his door. And we are crawling on our knees because what is it? We want our namaskar. That is how we are, so stupid, right? But I wanted my namaskar, so I was crawling, but at the same time listening. And I'm saying, come into my plane. Nobody wants to come into my plane. Y'all are sitting there, waving aarati and doing bhajans and projects. Something y'all are doing, but nobody's coming into my plane. And the final words that night was, when I leave, I won't even have 5 people in my plane. Aidi mandi kudu dorokadu. So I am not sharing this to throw a guilt complex upon us. I am just sharing this is exactly what happened. How we interpret this is entirely up to us. But when people ask me, what are those moments that changed your life? There were moments like these. What does Baba mean by coming into his plane? To me, I believe that he has come to share the highest wisdom. I have come from the heights of the Shiva Shakti principle, the Brahman principle, the Advaitic principle of I am God. I've come from that heights to tell you that you are also God. Come into my plane. I have landed in this plane. I'm saying, come into my plane. I want to take you back there. That's a purpose of an avatar. That's a purpose of a teacher. Let me take you back to those heights of Vedas, Vedanta, that. But what you all are doing, we sit there and say, no, you are God, you are avatar. Oh, I will compose this bhajan on you. I will put this flower up on you. I will decorate you this way. I will do this. I will do that. I will all of this. But we are not ready to believe that fundamental principle that is on to believe that you and I are divine. Why is it so difficult to take that first step? We push it away saying, Arey Bapre, wo sabs are abstract. That is all too abstract. I am not there. I'm not ready for that. By saying that, we are treating something very lightly. The very basis of our existence on this planet, we take it lightly. And the very basis of Swami's teachings, we take it lightly. And we say, oh, that is all abstract. Let us simply worship him. He will take care of us. He will take care of us. And in that taking care of us, he's saying, begin to remember your own divinity. To me, getting into Baba's plane, therefore, is opening the doors to the belief that you and I are divine. And therefore, I want to end with this beautiful mantra he gave all of us, this affirmation that he gave all of us on November 23rd. I think it was 1983 or 1984 in the discourse. He said, say this. This is my gift to you on my birthday. Say this every day. Say this. So begin to say this. What are those affirmations? I am God. I am God. I am not different from God. I am the Akhanda Parabrahman. I am Sat Chit Ananda. Grief and anxiety cannot affect me, cannot enter me. I am ever content. Fear cannot affect me. I am God. I am God. I am not different from God. Let us begin to say these, my dear sisters and brothers. Say these statements every day. Slowly the meaning will dawn upon us. Slowly our real nature, the divine nature that is willing to sprout, will help you live life to its fullest. Let our children see us saying this mantra. Let us pass this mantra to our child. This is the legacy that Sai Baba has left behind. The legacy that you and I are divine. All we have to do is to begin to remember our own divinity. I know I went way beyond time, but thank you. Well, not exactly. I believe it was 90 minutes, but we have 10 minutes for some interactions. So I want to stop here. And I hope I made sense in my presentation. I wanted to give you a glimpse of the physical side. There was no miracle in this experiences that I have shared. There was no aha moments. But to me, that simplicity, that austerity of a teacher is the hallmark of what he did. If we want to do something with our lives, remember that we have to put all our resources at disposal. All our resources, whether it is time or money or talents or whatever it is, let's put all our resources at our disposal into that mission which I want to do. No matter what the outcome, without the fear of the outcome, focus on the excellence of that you want to offer, and watch the universe begin to unfold its divine energies and begin to support you. It is magical, and yet it is a law. It is a simple law. You are then tapping your own inner divinity, and the universe begins to work with you. You take one step, Sai takes 1,000 steps and comes and helps you. Because he is there, his energy is there even to this day, and that same austerity and penance, that energy is there to protect every single devotee. When we call the name of Sai, when we think about him, remember that we create an aura of protection, an aura that will protect us, so we begin to evolve spiritually. Let us take all the other challenges in our everyday life in our stride. Let us say, that's part of my karma. Let me face it. Let me not try to escape from it saying, Baba, help me, why this is happening, help me away. No, let me face it. Let's take responsibility for our actions, our past actions. And let's face it, that's okay. But let's begin to open doors to this divine energy of being God. And then watch how miraculously life begins to rearrange itself. So, having said that, thank you all for your patience. Thank you for listening. And now I hand the microphone, if you will, back to our brother Guru and others. Thank you. Sairam.
Sairam, brother Sunder, I hope I am audible.
Yes, you are. Thank you.
Okay. Honestly, if you say that after this kind of a satsang, the mind is completely silenced. I am experiencing it. I'm sure most of us would be experiencing complete silence in the mind, because when you say there is no aha moment in this, in fact, I think this session itself was an aha moment, because all the while we have heard experiences of people with an avatar. I think this kind of a session, you have introduced the life of an avatar when he comes in his physical body, which is probably makes it a completely unique satsang. And I don't know, we have absolutely no words to speak out. That's why the mind itself has gone into silence mode after listening to this kind of a satsang. And in fact, if you allow me to add, when you explained this entire austere life and the final experience of when Swami walked after the 2 hour silence on that day, I'm recollected of that interaction that happened between Swami Vivekananda and Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, when he says that everybody comes to God asking this or that. Everybody cries to God, I want this or that, but nobody cries for God.
Mm.
Everybody cries for what they want, but nobody cries for God per se. And he asked, clearly Ramakrishna Paramahamsa introduced the God to Vivekananda in the very first meeting when he says, who can cry for him unless you have love for him? And I think this kind of a session, the way you explained and narrated, I think it clearly shows this, because the entire scene came alive in front of our minds. That all the while we have been asking. I think that Chamakam says, ye chame, wo chame. But end of the day, what is our contribution to him? I think one of the biggest takeaway from this session is, I think all of us, it's an introspection mode. What can I give to Swami? Though he doesn't want anything from us. If at all he said, if I want something, it is your love. But still, what can we contribute to him? We have asked enough from him. It's time to give back to him. I think this is one of the big takeaways. Another important lesson from this entire episode that you explained about his life and day to day, the way he lived in the small room. I think is complete acceptance. An acceptance of life as it is without any complaints whatsoever. I think in
Yeah.
our lives, as you said, if you don't have so far, if you don't have this, we have barrage of things. My life is not comfortable. I need to earn more. I need to work more. But I think in his case, whatever he got, he was completely happy and satisfied without any complaints. I think that is the biggest lesson of life, that 100% acceptance of our circumstances, for us to fall back on him as his grace. Now I don't know whom he is going to say whose grace. It is his own grace on him to accept the
Mm.
life as it is that he has taken upon. So that is another big learning for all of us, that acceptance, of complete acceptance with zero complaint level, is what we learn from his life, day-to-day life, that you shared. And the final one, obviously, which we have experienced multifold, is the selflessness. Complete. When Swami used to say, from top to toe, my energy is not divine energy. My energy is because of purity and selflessness. I
Yeah.
think the entire life that you explained in our last 1 hour 15 minutes or so is complete selflessness. Nothing for him. He only gave and gave and gave, and that is what his life message is. And which he
Yeah.
always obviously said, that my life is my own message.
Yeah.
So, and then he also went ahead and said, at the time when your life becomes my message is when you say that, when you beautifully ended with saying that, come into my plane. So that plane, probably we can say, when our life resembles his life, his selflessness, his giving and giving and giving attitude, if I may use this word,
Mm.
or even complete acceptance that everything that happens to us is his will, his grace, and it's perfect in our life. I think these are the very big takeaways from today's session. And I think the entire session is aha moment. I think this kind of a session, at least in our life, we have not heard of in the past. I'm sure many people will agree, because nobody introduced God's human life on earth the way you explained today. We have heard experiences of Swami in people's life, but Swami as a life on earth is probably one of a kind. I have not heard, at least I have not heard of these kind of satsang. So heartfelt gratitude to you for taking the time out and actually narrating so beautifully for all of us. I'm sure this is going to have a long introspection about all the aspects that you have said. I will not be surprised if this session is repeatedly seen on YouTube by each one of us several times to absorb and digest what you said, and probably at least implement, if not 100%, at least 20-30% of Swami's austere life in our lives. And really grateful to Swami that permitting Brother Sundar to allow to share your life with us. I'm sure he's with us right now, is listening to us, and he's smiling also, that learn from my life kind of. So really heartfelt gratitude to Swami as well for this kind of a session for all of us. And
Thank you.
there are some very interesting questions coming up. We'll pick up 2 or 3 for want of time.
Yeah.
One is, can you request him? I mean, if somebody is asking me to ask you, can you request him to narrate the vessel washing incident?
Okay. That's also a long incident, but I'll make it very very short, just to share the gist of that experience. It was a time when I was during those months when I was in Baba's room. I received a letter from my dad that he was robbed and he was beaten up, and in the village in Haryana where he was at that time working. And my question that time at that moment was, my father is such a sincere, honest person. He gets up every morning and does his Gayatri and he does his puja, and he's very, very, very straightforward and very simple. I'm sorry for this. This something is bothering my nose. I don't know what. Anyway, and so my question, because I couldn't ask Swami why this happened to my father and all of that, right? At that moment, I'm watching all of this, so like I can't be so small and ask Swami about my dad. Look at him doing all this for others. But a more philosophical question, if you will, came in my mind, saying, why do bad things happen to good people? When my father has not hurt anyone, why do these things happen? And so I wrote that kind of a letter to Swami, because even though you're in Swami's room, it doesn't mean you, when Swami is passing by, you say, excuse me, Baba, I have a question. You dare not do that. That is another thing. Uh, Only when he gives you permission, you can talk to him. So very, very traditional Gurukulam kind of an atmosphere with everyone there. Nobody could dare say, yeah, I'll go put in a word for you for Swami. It never happened. Swami will say, what, Amy Samacharam? He'll look at you and ask you to speak, then you speak. So in that sense, he was very, very alone in that sense as well. There was no chit chatting with Swami. So I couldn't ask Swami that. So I had to write a letter. That's why I'm trying to explain that why I wrote a letter to Swami when I was in his room. But that's how it was, right? And I dare not, I didn't know, even if Swami asked me to speak, I wouldn't know how to word these. So I put that letter in my pocket and I had not decided whether to give or not. I said, let me think whether to give or not, depending on Swami's mood, let me see. Um, but when he was passing by after his dinner and he was going upstairs, I was standing by the staircase. So as he passed by, he looked at the envelope and without even asking me, he put his fingers and picked the envelope and went off. So I was like, oh gosh, how did he know there was one? And secondly, he just gone. So I left it. So that night I noticed he had read my letter because my letter was open and torn in the waste paper basket. So I knew that was there. He had read it. But there was no chance, no sign of having read, no explanation, no response, nothing. So I just let it be. About a couple of weeks later, I was washing dishes downstairs in the kitchen very silently. And after lunch, and there was a little glass that was left, a stainless steel. We call it tumbler in India, right? A little stainless steel tumbler. There was rasam or something in it and all that mixed. And I was going to pick it up to wash it towards the end when I heard the familiar A. And I froze because right behind me was Baba. This was his time his first afternoon siesta, if you will, but then he was down here. So I looked and I thought I was making some sound or something that disturbed him because these are stone walls, right? Every sound echoes nicely in the mandir. So it has to be very, very quiet. So there was a complete training in mindfulness, if you will. More very Zen-like atmosphere it was. Anyway, so Baba said, hey, I looked and of course he was not upset. So I had not done anything. He said, what is it you're doing? And he came and he took over the sink. I stepped aside. He came and stood. And he said, tu, what all you people eat and all, just saying something jokingly. And then he said, see, there's so much dirt in this tumbler. And he opened the tap and said, Chudu, good water is going. I'm making it very short. So good water is going in and see what happens in the tumbler when good water goes in. Bad starts coming out first. Why? Because there is bad inside. It comes out. Galisu, he said, dirt, not bad, dirt. Dirt comes out. And then he said, seeing the dirt comes out, what do? You stop doing good and you close the tap. And now he says, look into the glass. There is good and bad mixed. Everything is mixed. Confusion, doubt, anni ippudu glass lo undi. Then he said, do good, do good, do good. Or kept opening the tap, and the water, the good water rather, the clean water from the tap kept going into the tumbler or the glass. And then this rasam, sambar, and dal, what was left kept coming out. And then within less than in a few seconds, what happened? There were all of that had come out, and there was only good and then suddenly Swami became like a 5-year-old child. He said, chudu, 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 see what's happening. Good in, good out, good in, good out, good in, out. Now there's no more dirt to come out. Only good, good. And then he turned around, he closed the tab, he turned around, and as he walked, he kept saying, good is God, God is good, good is God, God is good. And kind of enjoyed that session. He was enjoying it, so he went off. I was left spellbound. And it took me a while to realize that was the answer to the letter I had written, saying that if bad things happen to you, it is your old dirt, if you will, that we carry across lifetimes. We call it vasanas and to some extent some samskaras as well. In other words, the deep conditioned mindset that we have that is so strong that this prevents us from thinking in spirituality. We are afraid to think out of the box, right? Anyway, so that dirt, when we begin spiritual awareness, the divinity comes in and begins to break that dirt free. So that dirt comes out, expresses itself in the form of accidents, in the form of illnesses, in the form of losses, in the form of separations, if you will, good and bad. All of this comes out. Let it all come out. But because it happens, if you get afraid and you stop doing the good water going in, then what happens is, now he says, most of y'all are like this, where a good and bad is mixed. Sometimes, occasionally, we do something good, and we say, no, not too much of that, yeah, let's come back to our normal life. And we go back and forth, back and forth. This kind of mixed lifestyle is what we live in, most of us, right? And then he says, do good, do good, do good. In other words, open that pure spiritual awareness. Let it go in. Let the dirt come out. Let it come out. Know that at one point there will be only good in and good out. There will only be good and good out. So when our brother spoke about acceptance, that's what it is. Allow it to happen. Allow the tumultuous nature of life, if you will. Let it happen. Kya hone wala hai? At the most, there will be death. Whatever, let it go on. Let us have that that strength and that faith, because you and I have accepted Sai Baba as our charioteer. When Krishna had Arjuna as a chariot, when Arjuna had Krishna as a charioteer, Krishna didn't fight the war. Krishna didn't make the war easy for Arjuna. Krishna didn't say you will not be killed. Krishna didn't say your son you will not lose. Arjuna lost his son. Arjuna lost his near and dear ones. He was hurt himself in the battlefield. He had to do questionable acts, everything, but he trusted Krishna as a charioteer. And therefore, there was no fear. He accepted completely. That is what life is. So if you and I accept Sai Baba as our charioteer and live life by his principles, simple principles of Satya, Dharma, Shanti, Prema, Ahimsa, define these principles the way they make sense to you today and live by it. And those definitions will keep changing, evolving, if you will. Live by those definitions. Don't compromise on those definitions. Then this dirt that begins to happen in our life will eventually cease. And there will be only Sai energy flowing in and out through you. So that was the experience, and that was a lesson I learned. Thank you for asking that question.
Excellent. I think this is probably the most easiest way Bhagwan, and Bhagwan is, that's why he is the way he is. In the most easiest way, he explains the most profound truths, and so beautifully. I think it could have answered many people's question. Honestly, I also did not realize that what is the hidden message in this. I thought there must be some hilarious incident out this, but this is an exceptional message. Probably again we need to digest.
No, it's important for us to know, because people will say Sai Baba hone se kya fayda hua? What is the advantage of having Sai Baba in your life, right? We think there has to be an advantage. Swami once told us that Duryodhana and Arjuna both stood at Krishna's feet, and Arjuna chose Krishna knowing fully well Krishna is not going to involve in the. Duryodhana asked for Krishna, what all I can get from Krishna, give me all of that. And Swami looked at us and said, you're all Duryodhanas, because all of you are coming for what can I get out of Sai Baba? Who's asking for Sai Baba, right? So think of that for a moment. That's where we are. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, absolutely. Brilliant. Before I take a next question, I think Sister Sheetal actually has message. Today is a World Simplicity Day, and there is no better day than today to study life of Swami, who himself is a simplicity personified. So thanks, Sister Sheetal, for highlighting this for all of us. There is one question coming up: how can the children in today's time be always connected to Swami if they are not studying in his schools, and especially in Swami's physical absence?
I wish I knew the answer to that. The one answer that I know and I can share is children, youngsters, in fact, the future generations, if you will, they are looking up to role models. For me, Swami was a role model. We who are devotees of Swami, we need to ask ourselves, are we role models for being Sai devotees? If 30 years after being a Sai devotee, 40 years after being a Sai devotee, and getting rings and watches and chains and all of these experiences of Baba and all of that, if I'm still exactly the same place where I am with my neighbor who has not even heard of Swami, if they are the same, my child sees, Hey Baba, but you get angry at the same thing, you're upset at the same thing like the others, what is the difference, right? Children these days are asking, so what? Quote unquote, so what? Suppose I go and tell a youngster, I got 20 years I stayed with Baba, and I got a ring, I got a watch, I have so many experiences. The kid is going to look at me and say, so what? Okay, so, because what they are asking here is, what has that done to your life? Where can I see that in your life? In other words, if they see role models, then they get inspired to live life like that. And in that inspiration, they will seek Swami. So how do we convince children to take to Swami's teachings? How do we convince children? You cannot convince them by classes and by online programs. That is one side of the picture. That is a small portion. Communication, actually, the verbal communication, the teaching methodologies, and all of that. We know all of that today. Science has confirmed that. That is only 7% of communication takes place. The 93% Out of the 93%, the other 20% is body language and so on. But the major portion, less 70+% is the energy that is generated. In other words, the non-verbal communication. In other words, your deep faith and the role that you set up. If you are a role model for your child will automatically follow Swami's teachings. The question that we need to ask ourselves as adults in the room, as people who want to leave a legacy behind, is what am I doing with Swami in my life? Am I being a role model? If I'm a role model, then my job is done. There will be somebody who will tune in to those. And if there are hundreds and thousands of role models, you will find that each one tunes to one role model or the other. I think it's important for us to focus on us being a role model rather than sitting back and expecting children to somehow magically attach themselves to Swami or youngsters to take to Swami. I don't think that it works that way. I think it works the other way, the way of being a role model. It's more a difficult path, but that is the only way I know, that is the only way Baba would teach us. And that is why he said, let your life be my message. Make your life my message. So I hope I answered that question.
No, absolutely. I think it is. I think the answer is applicable to all of us, that we need to become first role model to our own self. We should get inspired by our own life, and eventually, then the rest Swami will take care. The people around us will get inspired by our life itself.
Exactly.
And probably that's a fitting end. That is the best gift we can give to Swami. After knowing his life today, let's become his role model. Let us become the role model for others by following his teachings and practices. I have complete acceptance about the way he modeled it for us, and let our life be his message. Thank you very much, brother. Before we log off today, I think we have exceeded time, but it's fine, just because some very important insights came about. Before we log off, Shri Nimish Pandya uncle is also on this call. I maybe request him a few words as parting thoughts.
Sairam, Sairam, Sairam.
Sairam, Nimesh Bhai, Sairam.
Boss, I really wish.
We cannot hear you, uncle. I think you are on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay, great, super. Pleasure as usual, Sundar. Amazing session. And Siddharth is absolutely right. This is one of those very unique sessions. I mean, we've heard many, many, many sessions, but this one was to the point and really what all of us need to ponder and understand. Sundar, it's really, and I think that's the whole purpose of the master, that if we don't realize that divinity and that he and I are one. And I like yours when you say that we have to experience this. This is our own experience must bear fruit in this lifetime of opportunity that all of us have got. And there can be no second to it. In fact, I was just thinking the entire purpose of the entire Satyasai organization is only this. There's nothing else. And you are right when you said that we are so lost in activities and things that we do that we miss the main point. I think great reiterating this fact. I'm so happy to listen to you today. And it's all for us. I mean, all of us have to introspect. Rightly, as Siddharth mentioned, that getting that experience in day-to-day life and believing that he and I are one. And he said it so many times that we just choose to ignore this one message of his and do everything else that we can do, but not this one. I don't know why this durbuddhi comes to us, but I hope and pray to Swami that he gives us this sadbuddhi to focus only on this one thing that you've been reiterating. Great. Thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure. Amazing.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure to listen to you.
Thank you, Sairam. Thank you. Nice seeing you. Thank you.
Nice seeing you, Sundar. Good. My love to everybody in the family. Say hello to everyone. Good.
I will give my regards to your wife as well. Thank you.
Yes, very much. Sairam.
Thank you very much, Nimesh uncle, for your thoughts. Thanks, brother Sundar, for again sharing your experiences. Heart is not filled. We'll look forward to may Swami bless us with some more sessions like this in future from you. Let's close this session today with Samasta Loka.
Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. समस्तलोका सुखिनो भवन्तु। ओम शांति शांति शांति। जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय। साई राम।
Sai Ram.